And that brings us to the most important thing I think Mark Zuckerberg said on the Joe Rogan podcast, his view of reality itself. So last week, Overlord Zuckerberg went on the Joe Rogan podcast to talk about the metaverse, social media moderation and censorship, and of course, martial arts and working out. The stuff Zuck said about content moderation on Facebook was disappointing, but honestly wasn't all that surprising, and a lot of folks have already done great breakdowns on that moderation discussion. What was more revealing were his comments on how he perceives the future of the metaverse and even reality itself. Let's start with the technology Zuck is building at Facebook. With Meta's VR and AR technology, the Zuck wants to track your eyes,
eye contact,
your facial expressions,
your face be tracked,
your hands, your legs.
Tracks your hands. Eventually, it'll track your legs.
All in the name of deepening the illusion.
Things that either deepen the illusion or break it.
Which sounds kind of scary, but let's give all that a nice, non-threatening, positive spin, i.e. the way he framed it in the podcast. Here's how Mark Zuckerberg tries to trick us with semantics. On Rogan's podcast, when talking about his aspirations within the metaverse, he articulates his goal as simply connecting people, the same innocent goal he describes for Facebook and Instagram. Here's his initial pitch.
For me, the stuff is all about like helping people connect, right? I mean, the way that I got into this is, I don't know. I just started thinking about what would be the ultimate expression of basically people using technology to feel present with each other, right? It's not phones, it's not computers. That's, to me, what virtual and eventually augmented reality are all about.
So with his goal of connecting people, he wants to make our impersonal digital lives more personal, natural, and human. Sounds pretty good when you frame it like that, right? But there's a subtle trick he used to make the metaverse sound like only positive innovation. Did you notice? He frames his work as replacing existing technology of phones and computers to improve online interactions. However, most people's true concern comes from VR's effect on the real world, offline. If you make the metaverse immersive and addictive enough, people will spend more and more time in that pseudo-reality rather than touching grass, as the youth say, in the real world. VR might make our online interactions feel a bit more immersive and real, but that very benefit could in turn compete with reality and pull us away from the unplugged physical world. When we think about the consequences of the metaverse, the denominator shouldn't be just our time spent online, it's both our time online and our time offline. And that brings us to the most important thing I think Mark Zuckerberg said on the Joe Rogan podcast, his view of reality itself.
I actually think when you say the real world, I call that the physical world. And I think there's the physical world and the digital world. And I think the combination of those increasingly is the real world. But I don't know, that's sort of how I think about it. I think probably the right way to think about what the real world is at this point is not actually just the physical world.
He wants us to shift our perspective and treat digital reality and our physical reality both as components of the quote-unquote real world. Here he implies an equivalence between our digital lives and our physical lives, which in turn implies that it is just as real to be online as it is to be offline. If we accept this as reality, we are less likely to question how much the metaverse encroaches on our physical world, and in turn will be more likely to embrace the metaverse and increase the time we spend in the digital playground that Zuck will ultimately have control over. Surprisingly, in this interview, Zuckerberg makes very clear how important the physical world is to him.
I hate sitting in front of a desk, right? It's I just feel like if I'm not active, I'm wasting my day. I don't believe that we're just brains and tanks. I just think that so much of our experience is our body and not just our mind.
However, the technology he's building will inevitably compete with our physical reality. He is working with psychologists and neuroscientists to quote-unquote deepen the illusion and immerse people as much as possible with his product. So how will the metaverse compete with our physical reality? Joe Rogan comes up with a simple example of what makes it addictive.
The idea that you could have an office in a jungle. Like you could just all of a sudden we're going to call this meeting together. We're going to be on the moon.
Yeah.
We're going to be next to a volcano. There's going to be a bubbling volcano right next to the desk. It's cool.
The metaverse will be a world that doesn't adhere to the same rules as ours. You don't have to sew an outfit to wear it, just code up a skin. You don't have to work out for months to get a six-pack, just select it from the options menu. You can flip through exotic cars and build mansions in minutes. You don't have to adhere to the laws of physics, space, or time. If the illusion is deep enough, it will compete aggressively with reality. The technology we have now already does for a lot of people. In the metaverse, just like on Facebook or Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg has a profit motive to keep people on the platform for as long as possible. A profit motive to his company, his employees, his shareholders, and his own family and bank account. Everything he has built on Facebook and Instagram is built to grab your attention, retain your attention, and use your attention to sell you things. And it's reasonable to believe that the metaverse will be the same, and it'll be tempting. To give Joe Rogan credit, he asked Zuckerberg point blank about whether or not he thinks people's concerns are valid, about the metaverse being addictive and competing with reality. Here's what he had to say.
I mean, ultimately, isn't that where this is all going to go? Do you think that ultimately that is going to get to a time where the technology is so advanced that it's indiscernible?
It's interesting to sort of hypothesize what the kind of extreme end state is going to be when something becomes kind of all-consuming. But I think the normal way this stuff plays out is that some things are more easily mimicable or replaceable than others. I don't know. I mean, I also, I mean, maybe just because I'm in the position of like working on building this stuff every day, so maybe it's like I'm just trying to make it useful for a lot of things, right? So to jump to like it's so useful that it's better than everything is sort of I'm just not. I mean, that's so far ahead of where we actually are because I'm like in the trenches every day trying to get this to work.
Maybe too close to it.
Yeah.
Mark swiftly dodges the question by shying away from any speculation on the end state or negative consequences of the technology he's building. He basically says he's too close to it to see where the technology is going and the impact it'll have, which is at best negligent to blindly build tech for tech's sake, and at worst, intentionally ignoring any negative consequences. And herein lies the problem of tech bros building just to build. These companies aren't going to stop building if they think they can suck us in for profit, regardless of the consequences. And at the end of the day, the onus will be on us. We have to decide for ourselves when to unplug to find a healthy balance of the digital world and our physical world, the real world. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and subscribe for more takes on technology and society. It helps a guy with a tiny channel and monotone voice catch the YouTube algorithm. Thanks so much.